Hey everybody, welcome to XZ Chat. I'm Serge.
I'm Rob.
I'm Gen Z.
I'm Gen X.
And today we are doing another music reaction.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Rob, the pressure's on. You're going to be spinning the wheel for us.
Yeah,
Are you ready?
Serge has brought up a couple really good songs recently, so the pressure is on.
Yeah, I got some good wheel spins.
All right, let's see what we get.
On to the next one. Let's see what we're going to land on today.
Something new?
Ah.
Oh, there we go.
All right, we got
We love
Sabaton.
Sabaton.
Yeah.
We like a lot of these bands, but really, really enjoy these guys.
Yeah, so we get to dive into some history, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The Lost Battalion. All right.
All right, let's pull up the video. All right, guys, so we pulled up the video. This is there's two official lyric videos. We weren't sure which one to choose, so we went with the one that was Sabaton. The other one was, it seems like, I think it said Nuclear Blast Records, so I'm assuming it's like the label. So we usually just go with Sabaton directly, so that's what we did for this video. We're gonna first check out the description to see what event this song is about. So let's check it out. I'm assuming World War I or World War II.
It's always something historical.
Yep.
World War I.
World War I, yep. It looks like towards the very end of World War I because it's 1918. So
There we go. Historic fact.
yep. Though they were completely surrounded by Germans and were subjected to friendly fire, 554 all-American soldiers who were part of the 77th Division continued fighting for a week during the Meuse-Argonne offensive in 1918. They are known as the Lost Battalion. Interesting. Yeah, I did hear of Argonne. I don't know if I've heard of the Meuse, but I did hear of the Argonne offensive. I don't know much about it. What about you, Rob?
I've heard of it, and I don't know much about it as well. So I think we're about to learn something.
Yep. And then after this, we're gonna probably tomorrow because it's pretty late. We're gonna check out the history video behind it. So we'll also learn about the history. So for all you who are very much aware of this, don't get too frustrated because we're gonna go and we're gonna learn the history behind the song right after. So.
And who's the historian?
Indy Nidell.
That's right.
Yeah. So we've been watching a lot of Sabaton history, so we're getting familiar with the cast. All right, ready, Rob?
Let's play and turn it up.
All right, here we go. The Lost Battalion. An interesting name. It has that heroic sound to it.
It does, yes. This was an all-American battalion.
Yep.
I think it read, yeah.
554.
The great war rages on. Our battalion is lost in the Argonne. Under fire, there's nothing they can do. There's no way they can get a message through. Suffer heavy losses as the battle carries on. Liberty division standing strong. On their land as they made their stand, but disregarded demand. It's surrender or die, and the stakes are high. They live and they die, there's no time for goodbye. Weapon in hand as they made their stand, still disregarding demand. They would never comply, they would rather die. Now through the blockade, they were finally saved. Friendly fire munitions rocking low. The supplies they were dropped upon their foe. 1918, the war still rages on. The battalions are trapped in the Argonne. Chose not to surrender. They chose victory or defeat. Fallen brothers resting by their feet. On their land as they made their stand, but disregarded demand. It's surrender or die, and the stakes are high. They live and they die, there's no time for goodbye. Weapon in hand as they made their stand, still disregarding demand.
What I must say I really love is do you notice how they're going in and out with the instrumentals and like they're going in and out with the instrumentals and just in general the lyrics.
That's right. And what it does for me is it draws me in. It pumps me up and draws me in more and more into the song.
Yeah, it has that heroic feel to it, like dun 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 dun, and then it pulls back, and then there's again dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So it sounds like they were encircled by Germans, and then they actually managed to break out. But I'm assuming there was with heavy losses, because
Sure.
that's oftentimes what happens. It kind of reminds me of I forgot. I think it was on the hills of Manchuria. There was Russian forces. They were surrounded by Japanese forces, and they were out of ammunition, and so they had to break out of the encirclement, and basically they were ordered to fix bayonets, and they had the orchestra also march with them, and the orchestra would play a song as they were all breaking out the encirclement. They took heavy losses, including a lot of the orchestra band members, and one of the surviving members of the orchestra actually went on to write a piece called "On the Hills of Manchuria," which was like I think it was like a ballroom dance style of song. It was a waltz, I think, is the term. And then later, the Red Army added some lyrics to it. So,
And that's about Japan and, at the time, Russia.
yeah, I believe so.
Okay, it was pre-Soviet Union then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it was pre-Soviet Union for sure. I believe it was Tsarist army.
Okay.
And so, like I said, they ran out of ammunition. They were encircled, and they ended up having to break out with just bayonets out of the encirclement. They took heavy losses, including most of the band died. And then one of the surviving members went ahead and wrote that famous piece on the hills of Manchuria. So,
And it's things like that that make me think about the courage and the bravery of these guys. The example you gave, and here we see the 77th Battalion, All-American Battalion. They're far away from their land. They're surrounded by enemies, and who knows what they were fighting for at that time. Was it another piece of land, or just to get out and save themselves? But rather than suffer defeat or surrender, they were just still going to fight for victory. It sounds heroic, like you're saying, with the sound of the instruments. And it makes me think about just the bravery of these guys.
right.
They're just standing strong and not letting themselves just give in to the Germans here.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to hear more about the history as we watch Sabaton history after this, because it said something about friendly fire, which I'm curious to see how that all transpired. Of course, friendly fire is something that was not all that rare. It happened a lot of times, usually due to miscommunication. There was actually a movie I saw not that long ago, and I think it was about the Medal of Honor recipient who was an Air Force member. It was like a movie based around this one guy who dropped down from a helicopter. I think it was during Vietnam. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And he sacrificed his life in order to save many others. And something that just reminds me from that movie is that some of those guys, one of the officer in the area, he ordered a mortar strike on his area, like danger close, to some enemies that were just ahead, because his unit were pinned down really heavily. But he he miscalculated the coordinates, and he ended up bombing his own men. Yeah, it was like a huge embarrassment. And then later, it was he tried to cover it up. So,
Yeah, I thought when I saw those lyrics, with all the chaos going on, and if they're surrounded by the German army, they're not shooting just forward or shooting towards the east or the west. They're shooting all around themselves. I could see where there'd be friendly fire, shooting actually amongst themselves, into themselves, because of the chaos and probably all the smoke and dust in the air and not being able to see things straight.
Yeah, ready to jump back in?
Let's play it.
Die and the stakes are high. They live and they die. There's no time for goodbye. Weapon in hand as they made their stand. Still disregarding demand.
They're probably demanding to surrender.
They would rather die. But through the blockade, they were finally saved. As they made their stand, a disregarded demand. It's surrender or die, and the stakes are high. If or die, you can tell there's no goodbye. With a weapon in hand, as they made their stand, still disregarding demand. They would never comply, they would rather die. They stood strong, and the legend still lives on. Suffered heavy losses, to the grave where they stood strong. But the memory of the fallen still lives on. In their land as they made their stand, but disregarded demand. It's surrender
Wow.
I'm really eager now to hear Indy's interpretation of what happened here in history. It sounds like they broke through the blockade, and
Right.
many died, and yet many were saved too here.
Yeah, I always find like these in history. I always found last stands, like those heroic last stands, to be really interesting. And there's a lot of great movies that portray either real historic events that happened, or are inspired by, or kind of show what situations could have looked like. I think there's one film that was called Penfilov's 28 Men, which showed it. That was a great war movie that kind of showed like what a last stand could look like. And in general, I really love learning about history. And it's also interesting, like the all-American units, like they're surrounded by Germans and they continue to fight, and they refuse to surrender. Reminds me of some of the other conflicts that American soldiers were involved in. Like, for example, during World War II, there was the Battle of the Bulge. In winter time, that was very famous. And yeah, so I'm really curious to learn more about this specific conflict.
Well, tune in with us because we'll be reacting to Indy Nidell's interpretation of what happened there historically with this particular battle, or this battalion.
And what do you think of the song itself? What do you think of like the sound, the instrumentals, the voice?
The sound, how do I say, it was a simple sounding song this time by Sabaton. Nothing complex. And yeah, I liked it. So when I say simple, it was a little bit different than some of the other bands that we've been listening to. This was more simple in the way it sounded. It did sound epic, sounded victorious. It sounded like there was sort of a high that went with it. But it lacked a certain complexity that I've heard with other of their Sabaton songs. And trying to articulate or describe what that complexity was in the sound, but enjoyable still. I like the song.
I kind of picked up on that as well. When you say simple, I'm kind of thinking like straightforward, right? Straightforward in the meaning, weapon in hand, they made their final stand. There's no surrender, even though they were demanded to surrender. They just kept straight with the mission. They just broke straight out of the encirclement.
I think what it is, I just thought of this, is the tempo. The tempo was, it was kind of the same, not complex in how it was presented or how the instruments created the whole sound of the song, the tempo.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. But
good. I liked it.
But still very enjoyable. I
much.
enjoyed it. Enjoy the sound, and like I said, we're gonna dive into history right after this. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right.
With that being said, we hope you guys enjoyed as well. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell icon to stay up to date on future videos.
And stay tuned because you will see us soon.
All right, guys. Take care.